Hello and welcome to the Onfinity training session. In this session, we will work through the requisition to purchase order process, a fundamental procurement workflow to ensure a structured and efficient requirement within organizations. Let's begin by reviewing the agenda of today's session. We will explore each stage of requisition to purchase order process and understand its business relevance, and examine the key components that support this flow in the Onfinity system. The objective of this session is to enable you to understand the requisition to purchase order process and its associated terms in the context of business processes. Also enables you to test the requisition to purchase order process in the context of business requirements. Before we proceed, let's ensure that the necessary prerequisites are in place. You must have the access to the Onfinity platform with a valid user ID and password. Also, Onfinity basic setup and master data setup configurations must be completed and available. To illustrate the process and enhance understanding of the requisition to purchase order workflow, let us now explore a practical use case. Here, we will walk through a real-world scenario demonstrating the requisition to purchase order process in detail. The Sonic Venture initiates a procurement process to acquire smartphones and laptops for new employees. It begins with the purchase requisition raised by HR department detailing the required specification and quantities. The requisition document includes detailed specifications, for example, processor type, RAM, storage, brand preference. Quantity required, for example, 50 Dell laptops, 25 Samsung Galaxy S22, and 25 Redmi Note 10, 50 Logitech mouse. Once the requisition is reviewed and completed by the appropriate authority, the procurement team process it and create a purchase order. Upon delivery, the goods are inspected, and a good receipt note is generated to confirm the receipt. Finally, the finance team processes the AP invoice to ensure that the invoice is matched against the PO and the GRN, validating the quantity and price accuracy. Next, we have the requisition to purchase order process flow. It starts with a requisition, move through purchase order creation, and conclude with goods receipt note and invoice processing. Each step in this workflow ensures accurate acquisition and clear accountability at every stage of the procurement cycle. Let's know the basic master involved in this process. To record a requisition to purchase order process, here are some basic masters which must be available in the system. So you need vendor, product or charge, attribute set instance, unit of measure, currency, price list, payment term, and payment method. All these topics are already covered in their respective training sessions. If you want to learn how to configure them, you can watch the detailed sessions on each topic. Now that we've covered the basic concepts and practical use case of the process, we have a clear understanding of the steps required to execute this business process effectively. This concludes the foundational knowledge of how and what we are going to process within the Onfinity system. Now, let's proceed to the system demonstration to explore how this process can be performed step by step. Open the Onfinity platform by entering the designated URL into your web browser. Enter your user ID in the designated field. Enter your password. Click on the Login button to access the system. Once you log into the system, you will see all the available widgets, referred to as mosaics, on the Onfinity homepage. You can customize your mosaics according to your preferences. These mosaics provide real-time data insights that can be used for monitoring and analysis purposes. As per our use case, we will start the process with the requisition. To open the requisition screen, simply go to the menu utility. You can either search for requisition directly using the menu search bar or navigate to the procurement management section. Under procurement management, locate the requisition module and simply click on Requisition, and the screen will open for you. Requisition is the first step in the procurement process. It is a formal request raised by a department or user to obtain goods or services needed for business operations. Requisitions are commonly used to request items such as supplies, raw materials, or labor. This helps ensure proper inventory management and supports smooth operational planning. A requisition is raised when there is a need for goods or services, and the request is formally submitted through the system. The requisition screen allows users to specify the required items, quantities, and preferred delivery timelines. Once submitted, the request goes through an internal review and approval process before it proceeds to the next step, whether that is generating a purchase order, consuming materials from inventory, initiating a material transfer, or any other subsequent action. By default, the landing page is displayed when the requisition screen is opened, where you will see a set of default widgets, also known as mosaics. On the requisition landing page, you can filter existing records in the system using various widgets, such as Advanced Search, Warehouse, Document Type, Document Status, Preparer, and Requester. These filters only display data when corresponding values are available. If a new value is used, it appears as a hyperlinked filter, allowing quick access to relevant records. You can open a requisition record by simply clicking on the hyperlink. Additionally, here is a mosaic titled Create PO from Open Requisition, which is used to initiate a purchase order directly from an approved requisition, especially when a current vendor is already defined for the product. This feature streamlines the procurement process by automatically pulling requisition data into the purchase order, reducing manual entry and ensuring accuracy. On this page, you will find KPIs that provide insights into the status of requisitions, such as how many are pending for material transfer, inventory use, or are open for purchase order creation. You can also see pending requisitions by approver, which shows the number of requisitions awaiting approval, assuming an approval workflow is configured for requisitions. Additionally, charts are available to help analyze trends, including quarterly and monthly comparisons of requisition transactions between the current and previous year. Another chart displays a product category comparison, reflecting the requisition value across different categories, helping users assess procurement patterns. You can navigate directly to the requisition screen by clicking on the screen option, or alternatively use the View or Add New Mosaic as required. For now, we will click on New Record to initiate a new requisition. This will open the screen in Single Record View. On this screen, begin by selecting the organization under which the requisition is being created. This ensures that the transaction is properly aligned with the corresponding business unit. After selecting the organization, choose the appropriate document type that aligns with the intended transaction. In this system, there are typically two types of requisition document types available. One is system-generated, labeled Purchase Requisition, intended for procurement-related transactions. The other is used for material-related transactions, such as material transfer or inventory use. In our case, since we are initiating a procurement process, we will proceed with Purchase Requisition as the document type. For more details on configuring and processing requisitions for inventory use or material transfer, you may refer to the dedicated training sessions on those topics. While the document types serve different purposes, they are structurally similar and distinguished primarily by their naming conventions. Next, enter the document date, which represents the date on which the requisition record is being created in the system. This field serves as a reference for when the requisition was formally initiated. Following this, select the requester, the individual who has raised or initiated the request for the requisition. The preparer refers to the person who has access to the system and is responsible for creating and monitoring the requisition process. In many cases, the preparer and requester may be the same individual. In such scenarios, the requester field can be left blank, as it is not mandatory. This depends entirely on the organization's internal process and requirements. By default, the preparer is auto-populated based on the logged-in user. However, it can be manually modified if necessary. Let's take Tirth as the requester, who is currently serving as the HR admin. You can set the priority in the Priority field, which defines the urgency or importance of procuring the requested items that we have requested through this requisition that can be mentioned here, and on which date we are expecting to get this particular call. Let's set the date required as 30th of June 2025. This date required indicates the urgency of the requisition and represents the expected timeline by which the procurement process should be completed. select the requester warehouse, which represents the location where the requested products are needed. The source warehouse refers to a central or supplying warehouse within the organization that fulfills demands from other requesting locations, commonly used in internal material transfer scenarios. However, since this is a purchase requisition intended for procurement, both the requester and source warehouses can be set to Sonic Venture Warehouse. Next, select the appropriate price list, which will be used to maintain the pricing details for the transaction. If multiple price lists are available in the system, you may select the one that best suits the requirement. The creation and configuration of price lists have been covered in detail in the dedicated price list training session. You may refer to that session for further information. The preparer field identifies the individual responsible for creating the requisition. After completing all the required fields, click on Save to save the requisition header tab record. You may also enter a description to provide specific instructions or additional context related to the requisition. However, this field is informational only and does not impact the process functionally. For this instance, we will proceed without adding a description. You can add item lines either directly from the composite view or by clicking the Line tab button, which will navigate you to the Lines tab of the requisition. Before proceeding to add lines, let's briefly discuss the available process buttons. Calculate Budget. This button is used to calculate the budget availability for the requisition. It becomes relevant only when budget settings are enabled in the system. Detailed functionality and configuration of this feature will be covered in the specific budget training session. Copy from other requisition. This option allows you to copy item lines from an existing requisition record. To use this, click the Copy from Other Requisition button. Enter or select the document number of an existing requisition. Click OK to insert the item lines from the selected record. For this demonstration, we are not using an existing requisition. However, this feature is available for future use when similar line data needs to be reused. As no existing record is currently available, we will skip this step for now. Next, we have the Create Lines from Cart button, which allows users to insert lines directly from pre-created carts available in the system. This feature has been covered in detail in the dedicated cart training session. If you wish to understand how to utilize carts via the inventory count form, which is a highly efficient tool for inserting lines using pre-scanned carts, you may refer to that specific session. For now, let's close the Create Lines from Cart form, as we will proceed to insert the lines manually. Now let's move to the Lines tab. Or first, let's add a line directly from the composite view. To do this, click on the Add New Record option in the Line Composite section and select the product you want to procure. If the selected product has an attribute group associated with it, you'll need to choose the appropriate attribute. If an existing attribute record is available, you can select it. Otherwise, you can create a new one if required. Next, enter the required quantity. The price will be automatically fetched based on the price list selected in the header section of the requisition. If necessary, you can modify the price manually. However, since this is an internal request, pricing may not be critical for this demonstration. There is no actual impact of the prices entered on the requisition, as this step is primarily for documentation and reference purposes. Go ahead and save the line record. Now let's add a line through the Lines tab. Click on the Lines tab button to navigate to the Lines section. Click on New Record. This will open the line in Single Record view. In this view, you'll have the option to select either a product or a charge. Use product when adding an item to be procured. Use charge in case you need to add associated costs, like extended warranty, insurance, or other service-related expenses. As per our use case, we will proceed with selecting a product. If the selected product has attributes, choose the appropriate attribute set. You may also click directly on the attribute values field if you wish to create a new combination. For this demonstration, we'll use an existing attribute set, click OK to save attribute, and then enter the required quantity. In this section, you will also notice a field labeled Available Budget. This field displays the remaining budget if budget control is enabled in your system. If budget functionality is not activated, the field will remain empty and will have no impact on the requisition process. Additionally, the requisition quantity is displayed under the Other Details section. It is important to note the difference between this and the quantity field. The quantity field captures the value entered by the user based on the selected unit of measure, UOM. The system then automatically calculates and updates the requisition quantity in the primary or base UOM defined for the product. If the product supports multiple UOMs, you can select a different UOM for the transaction. However, the system will still convert and reflect the quantity in the base UOM, which is used for inventory and warehouse purposes. The order quantity will automatically update once a purchase order is created and completed using this requisition. Similarly, the reserved quantity will be updated if the requisition is used in any internal use or material transfer transaction. Once the transaction reaches a completed status, the delivered quantity will also be reflected accordingly. You will also find a budget breach check button available on this screen. This feature is applicable only when budgeting is enabled in the system. The budget breach check is triggered during the completion of the requisition. If the requested amount exceeds the available budget, the system will flag it as a budget breach based on the rules defined in your budget control configuration. You will find a reference order line field, which displays the associated requisition line created against the specific sales order line. For now, simply save the current record and proceed to add a new line item, for example, a laptop. Select the relevant attribute for the product, following the same steps as before. Enter the required quantity and click Save to add the line. Now, let's add another line item for the Logitech mouse. Since there is no attribute defined for this product, there's no need to select any attributes. Simply enter the quantity. You'll notice that no price is automatically populated for this item. This indicates that the product currently does not have a defined price in the associated price list within the system. In this case, we can manually enter the price. Let's assume the price is Rs 1500, which we will enter here. It's important to note that this price will not automatically carry over to the purchase order. It is informational at this stage of the process. There are two description fields available. Print description. Any information entered here will be included in the printed document. Description. This field is intended for internal use only and will not appear in printed outputs. Both fields are optional and carry no functional dependency in the requisition process. Therefore, we will leave them blank for now. Additionally, you will notice a tab button labeled Purchase Order. Once a purchase order is created against this requisition, it will be automatically linked and visible in this section. Now, navigate back to the Header tab to proceed with completing the requisition. Click on the Document Action button available within the Header panel. Upon clicking the Document Action button, a confirmation message will appear. Confirm the action to complete the record. This will update the document status from drafted to completed, and the record will become read only. This panel also displays other key information such as organization, requisition number, document date, currency, subtotal, document status, and the posting process button. These fields within Header panel are used to provide a consolidated view and quick insights into the requisition record. If a workflow is configured and linked to the requisition, the document status will transition to In Progress and remain pending until all required approvals are obtained. However, since no workflow has been configured for requisitions in the current setup, the requisition is marked as completed. At this stage, the completed requisition can be used to initiate the creation of a purchase order. To proceed, navigate to the purchase order screen. You can either search for purchase order using the menu search utility, or access it through the purchase order module under Procurement Management. Once the purchase order screen is opened, the landing page will display default widgets, referred to as mosaics, that provide useful insights and quick access to various purchase order functionalities. On the purchase order landing page, multiple mosaics are available to help filter and analyze records. These include advanced search, warehouse, document status, and vendor filters. Similar to the requisition screen, hyperlinks are dynamically generated for these fields once new values are added, enabling quick and efficient record filtering. Additionally, the system provides a feature to create purchase orders directly from sales orders. This functionality is especially valuable in streamlining procurement workflows and will be covered in detail in an upcoming session. A KPI widget is also available to display open purchase orders awaiting goods receipt notes, GRNs. This indicates that no deliveries have been received yet against those orders. Furthermore, visual charts offer insights into monthly procurement trends, purchase values by vendor, and spending by product category, supporting more strategic analysis and reporting. The system also provides due orders and expected orders mosaics. Due orders include purchase orders where the promised delivery date has passed and no GRN has been created. Expected orders represent POs with current or future delivery dates. These features allow users to directly generate GRNs from the mosaic interface, as previously demonstrated in the RFQ to PO training session. To use this functionality, simply click the record number, select the product line, and click the Generate button. Lastly, similar pending and expected GRN mosaics are available on the GRN landing page, offering consistent visibility into pending and upcoming receipts across procurement operations. For this demonstration, we will create a new purchase order based on an existing requisition. To do so, instead of navigating to the record screen and selecting the New Record option there, you can directly click on the New Record mosaic available on the purchase order landing page. This shortcut opens the purchase order screen in single record view, allowing you to efficiently enter the necessary information in the header section of the purchase order. Before proceeding further, let's take a moment to understand what a purchase order is. A purchase order, PO, is a formal document issued by a buyer to a supplier, specifying the details of the goods or services to be provided. It includes information such as product descriptions, quantities, prices, and delivery terms. A purchase order serves as a legal agreement between both parties and plays a critical role in managing procurement, ensuring transparency, and maintaining control over organizational spending. Now, to begin creating a purchase order, the first step is to select the appropriate organization under which the order will be processed. Next, you need to select the target document type, which defines the nature of the transaction. In the purchase order screen, there are 3 available document types. Purchase order. This is the standard document type used for typical procurement transactions. Release purchase order. This is used in the case of blanket purchase agreements, where releases are created against a pre-approved blanket order. We will explore this in more detail in an upcoming session. Variation order. This type is used when there are changes or modifications to an existing purchase order. If there is any variation in the order, this document type facilitates recording those adjustments. If the purchase order is being created based on a reference, such as a contract or quotation, you may specify that in the order reference field. Proceed to enter the order date, which indicates when the order is being created, and the promised date, which represents the expected delivery date from the vendor. Finally, select the vendor, the supplier from whom you are procuring the goods or services. In this use case, our vendor is DevCast Incorporation. Upon selecting the vendor, other related details, such as invoice to business partner, vendor location, invoice to location, vendor contact, and invoice to contact, are automatically populated. These fields are derived from the configuration of the vendor master record, specifically from the addresses and contact information defined therein. You can also set the priority of the purchase order if needed, which can be useful to identify urgent or critical procurement transactions. The representative field indicates the individual responsible for this purchase order. This is usually auto-populated based on the logged-in user, which is configured as representative in the system. Under the Delivery and Invoicing group, you will notice that the following fields are also auto-populated from the vendor's master data: price list, payment terms, payment method. These values are essential configurations associated with the vendor and directly influence the processing of the purchase order. To view or verify these configurations, you can click on the zoom icon available on Vendor field. This allows direct access to the vendor record without navigating through the menu path or using the search utility. Click the hyperlink on the vendor name to open record in single record view and review the vendor's detail. Let's return to the purchase order screen. Although the default values are pre-filled based on the vendor configuration, you may update them as needed. For example, we can set the payment term to 20 days, indicating that payment to the vendor will be made within 20 days of the invoice date. Additionally, there are two other fields, currency rate type and Incoterms. The currency rate type is relevant only when a currency other than the base currency is used and is primarily applied in scenarios where multiple conversion rates exist. Since we are using the base currency in this case, this field does not require attention. Incoterms can be used to define international trade terms for shipping and delivery obligations. However, as they are not applicable in our current context, we can leave this field blank for now. Now, select the warehouse where the goods are expected to be received. In this case, we will choose Sonic Venture Warehouse as the receiving location. Once the warehouse is selected, proceed to save the record. On the purchase order screen, several tab buttons are available to facilitate navigation and data entry. The Lines tab allows you to manually enter product details. It is especially useful if you prefer detailed line-level input. Alternatively, you can use the composite view to quickly add product lines with only the essential fields required. The Payment Schedule tab is used when advanced payment terms are configured. Since we are not using advanced payment terms in this scenario, this tab will remain unpopulated. We will cover this functionality in more detail in a dedicated session. The Order Tax tab displays the tax breakdown associated with the purchase order. This will be populated once products and applicable taxes are added to the order lines. The Expected Landed Cost Detail tab is used to define anticipated landed costs. This functionality will be discussed in detail in the dedicated costing training session. As we are not utilizing advanced payment term or landed cost in this example, we will not be focusing on these tabs at this point. Under the Actions menu on the purchase order screen, several process buttons are available to streamline different tasks. Create lines from cart. This option allows you to insert product lines directly from a predefined cart. It is useful when a list of items has been prepared in advance using the cart functionality. Apply discount. This feature enables you to apply discounts to line items. Upon clicking the Apply Discount button, a confirmation message will appear. Click OK to proceed. This will open the discount information window, where you can define the discount either as a fixed amount or as a percentage. Additionally, a clear discount option is available to remove any previously applied discounts. However, since no lines have been added to the purchase order at this stage, this functionality will not be used for now. You may simply close the discount window. Copy. From. This feature allows you to copy line items from an existing purchase order. Upon clicking the Copy From button, a confirmation prompt will appear. Click OK to proceed. This action will open an information window where you can enter the document number of the existing purchase order. Let's assume this is the purchase order you want to reference. Simply select the record, and upon clicking OK, the corresponding line items will be inserted into the current purchase order. For now, we will not be using this feature. We will use the Create Lines from Requisition option, as this process is being executed based on a requisition. After clicking this option, open the Requisition selection screen by clicking the Requisition field of Create Lines from window. From here, choose the requisition you previously created. Once selected, click OK. The system will then automatically populate the item lines based on the selected requisition on Create Lines from window. You may update the quantity if you wish to modify the requested amount. In some cases, it is possible that certain quantities are already available in the sourcing warehouse. In such situations, you can choose to run the material transfer process to utilize the available stock. However, for this demonstration, we will proceed with creating the purchase order lines for the full quantity. Select all the products, click OK, and the items will be successfully inserted into the purchase order. We can review the composite view to confirm that the correct products and corresponding quantities have been added to the lines. As you will notice, all the lines have been successfully inserted. However, the line for the Logitech mouse does not display a price. As mentioned earlier, this product does not have a price defined in the associated price list. You can either enter the price manually at this point, or navigate to the Lines tab by clicking the Lines tab button. We will open the record in single record view. Let's enter the price as $1,500, as agreed upon with the vendor. Here, the price field represents the actual purchase price, while the list price serves as the maximum retail price, MRP. Save the line. In addition to the fields such as Product Attribute Set Instance, UOM, and Prices, several other fields are available on Line tab. Date promised. This is inherited from the header by default. However, if a specific delivery date is applicable to a product, it can be defined at the line level. Charge. This can be used in place of a product to record additional expenses such as extended warranties or service add-ons. Print description. Used to include item-specific details that will appear on the printed document. Tax. This field defines the applicable tax. By default, the configured tax is set to VAT 0%. Discount. Displays the discount percentage applied, if any. If you wish to update the tax for any line item, you can do so as well. To proceed, switch to Grid View by clicking the Back button. From the Grid View, you can easily modify the tax field for each product line. For this example, let's assume we are applying a 10% tax rate to each product. If you're interested in understanding how the default tax is determined and configured, please refer to the Tax Management Setup session for more details. You can refer to the video tutorial for detailed instructions on how to configure tax settings and define default taxes that automatically apply during transactions. Once you've updated the tax information, click the Save button to resave the line items. After verifying the line details, navigate to the Header section and click Complete within the Header panel of Purchase to finalize the record and proceed with the next steps in the process. Confirm the completion by clicking OK on the confirmation prompt. Once the purchase order is completed, the order status is updated to Open, and the document status becomes completed within the Header panel. The Header panel also displays key information such as purchase order number, vendor name, order date, currency, grand total. This represents the total monetary value of all the line items on the purchase order, including taxes and applicable charges. It reflects the total amount payable to the vendor. And budget breach status. This field indicates whether the purchase order exceeds the allocated budget limits. If budget control is activated in the system and the total order amount surpasses the available budget, this field will highlight the breach, helping users manage financial compliance proactively. After the completion of the purchase order, both the header and line sections become read-only. Now, let's verify the order tax details updated under the Order Tax tab. Click on the hyperlinked record to open it in single record view. Here, you will be able to view the total taxable amount and the total tax amount associated with the purchase order. To generate a printout of the purchase order, simply click on the print option available. There are 3 supported file formats for printing: CSV, separated values, PDF, portable document format, RFT, rich text format. For this demonstration, let's proceed with the PDF option. Once opened, you'll see that all relevant purchase order details are clearly displayed in the print format, including header and line information, taxes, and totals. This is the default print layout configured for the purchase order document. Let's now navigate back to the purchase order screen. Once the purchase order, PO, is completed, it is shared with the vendor. Upon receiving the items, the next step is to proceed with the goods receipt note, GRN process, to update the stock in the warehouse. To begin, we need to navigate to the goods receipt note screen. Go to the Material Management module. Under Storage Operation, select Goods Receipt Note to open the screen. This will land you on the GRN landing page, which contains various mosaics. These mosaics help in filtering records, analyzing costs, tracking returns, and reviewing insights such as the top 10 stocked products via charts. We have a chart that shows us the current year versus last year's cost comparison. We can also see if there is any vendor return count against the GRN. Additionally, we can analyze the highest stock products in our system using the top 10 stocked products chart. Similar to the due order and expected order mosaics on the purchase order screen, we can use the pending GRN or expected GRN mosaics on the GRN screen to create the GRN directly from the purchase order. Here, we also have the same mosaic available for the GRN creation option. Alternatively, we can use the option available directly on the purchase order screen. It entirely depends on the user's preference and access to the screen and mosaic. However, for now, we will proceed with creating the GRN manually. If you wish to use the mosaic option for creation, you can follow the same steps. Click on the record already visible on the mosaic. The product line will appear. Once you select the line, the Generate GRN option will be enabled. Upon clicking this, the GRN information will be inserted automatically. But for now, we will continue with the manual creation. Just click on the new record mosaic, and the screen will open in single record view. Begin by selecting the organization under which the GRN is being created. But before we proceed further, let's understand what GRN, Goods Receipt Note, actually is. A Goods Receipt Note, GRN, is a formal document used to record the receipt of goods from a supplier. It serves as proof that the ordered products have been delivered and is used by the buyer to verify that the quantity and quality of the received items match those specified in the purchase order. In Onfinity, the GRN screen allows users to accurately record goods receipt and update inventory levels in the respective warehouse. This step is essential for confirming the fulfillment of the order before initiating the payment process. Let's begin by selecting the document type as Receipt, which is used for identifying the transaction type. In upcoming sessions, we will explore another scenario where the GRN involves a confirmation process. For that, a separate document type needs to be created specifically to handle confirmation-based GRNs. We will cover the creation and use of that document type in detail during that session. Set the movement date to reflect the actual date on which the items were received from the vendor. Next, select the warehouse where the received items are to be stored. After that, choose the vendor from whom the goods are being received, which will autofill associated fields like vendor location and vendor contact, just like the purchase order. After this, you may also assign a priority to the transaction if required. The representative field defaults to the logged-in user, indicating the person responsible for the follow-up on the transaction. For international transactions, you'll also need to specify the Incoterms, International Commercial Terms, to define the shipping responsibilities and conditions. You may also enter a description to provide specific instructions or additional context related to the GRN. However, this field is informational only and does not impact the process functionally. For this instance, we will proceed without adding a description. Next, select the locator where you expect to receive the items, and then save the record to proceed. Now, you will notice the Lines tab button along with some process buttons. Click the Lines tab button to navigate to the Lines section, where you can verify the details of each line. To generate Goods Receipt Note, GRN lines from an existing purchase order, click on the Create Lines from button. This will open a new window. Enter the last 2 digits of your purchase order number to search for the relevant order. Once the order appears, select it. The associated product lines from the order will be displayed. Here, you may modify the quantities if you are receiving only a partial shipment. Alternatively, you can click the lookup icon at the end of the order field to open the order selection window and choose the appropriate order from there. In this case, we will proceed with a full receipt. Select all product lines. Additionally, you'll notice 3 more fields. Invoice, used if an AP invoice is already created. Delivery date and product. This helps filter product lines when dealing with a large number of records. Once all desired product lines are selected, click OK to insert the lines into the GRN. Here, you will find a drop shipment check button, which is used specifically in the drop shipment process. This will be explained in detail during the dedicated session on drop shipment. Next, you can review your ledger postings by clicking on the Review Posting button. This feature allows you to verify the accounting entries generated by the transaction using posting process after completion. You will also see another option, Create Lines from Cart, which can be used to add lines from the cart. This feature is already covered in a separate session under the Inventory Count Form module. Once you have entered the lines, you may adjust the quantities if needed. After finalizing the line entries, click on the Complete button in the header panel. Confirm the action by clicking OK to complete the goods receipt note process. You can post the goods receipt note, GRN, by simply clicking on the Not Posted button. Confirm the action by clicking OK. This action will create the necessary ledger entries, which will then be reflected in your accounting records and available for further financial processing. Once the GRN reaches the completed status, the Generate Invoice button will become enabled. By clicking on the Generate Invoice button, the system will automatically create an accounts payable, AP, invoice based on the completed GRN. Confirm the process by clicking OK. You will then need to provide the invoice reference number as received from your vendor. For example, let's assume AP1007 is the reference number for this particular invoice. Next, select the appropriate document type for the invoice. If there are additional charges, for example warranty, freight, included in your purchase order that you wish to carry over into the AP invoice, you can enable the Include Charges option by marking it as true. However, since no such charges are associated with the current purchase order, we can skip this step. Click OK to proceed. Once this process is completed, the invoice number will be displayed at the bottom of the screen, indicating that the invoice has been successfully generated. Now let's open the AP invoice screen. You can either search for it directly using the menu search utility, or navigate through the Financial Management section. Under the Accounts Payable module, you will find the AP Invoice screen. Clicking on AP Invoice will take you to the AP Invoice landing page, where you'll see various mosaics. These mosaics act as visual filters, displaying real-time data related to vendor invoices. An AP invoice refers to a vendor's invoice that is used for processing payments, typically after the goods have been received and recorded in the system. The invoice screen allows users to enter invoice details and match them with the corresponding purchase order, PO, and goods receipt note, GRN. This three-way matching ensures both accuracy and compliance before the invoice is approved for payment. To manually add a new AP invoice, simply click on the New Record mosaic, which will open the screen in single record view. You can then enter all the required details manually. However, in this case, we have already generated the invoice directly from the GRN screen using the Generate Invoice process. So instead of creating a new one, we will search for the existing invoice to verify its details. First, click the Undo button to clear any unsaved changes. Then, use the Search Record field to enter the invoice number. Our generated invoice number is 1,017,000. Enter this and press Enter. You should now see the details of the created invoice displayed on the screen. Here, you will also be able to view all relevant details associated with the invoice, such as the reference document on which the invoice was generated, account date, vendor information, payment terms, payment method, and price list. All the required information is readily available on this screen. If necessary, you can make changes to these fields. We won't go into the full detail of each field or button here, as this will be covered thoroughly in a dedicated training session focused on the AP invoice process, explaining how each field works and its impact. Once you have verified all the information, you can complete the invoice by clicking on the Complete button. After the invoice is completed, the subsequent steps, such as payment processing or reconciliation, are managed by the finance department. If needed, you can also post this AP invoice by clicking on the Not Posted button. Then, simply confirm the action by clicking OK, and the document will be successfully posted. Thank you for your attention and participation. With a clear understanding of the requisition to purchase order process, you are now well equipped to apply this knowledge within your procurement workflows using Onfinity.